Welcome on in to the Wolverine podcast, Monday, November 11th. Happy Veterans Day. Remember to thank a veteran in your life. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts on behalf of the three of us for your service to our country. Anthony Broom here with...
Love you, Dad.
What's that?
I said, love you, Dad. What's that from?
Shout him out.
That's from old school.
That's from Clay even got that one. So my dad's a Navy vet. So thank you, Dad. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Anthony, I had to do that.
That's outstanding. My grandpa was in the Army. So shout out to both Army and Navy. Having very good football seasons aside from that. So it's been a fun year for the armed forces in that regard. Anthony Broom here with Chris Ballas and Clayton Safey as we enter bye week number 2 of the year, which I don't know about you guys. I mean, not that the work ever stops for us, but just in terms of emotional bandwidth, a good place to kind of put a pin in it for a week before the final 2 games of the regular season. We're going to talk about some of the things we'd like to see in the final 2 weeks and maybe take a bit of a different angle, different approach to it. But Michigan football sitting at 5-5. We'll wrap up thoughts on Indiana. Michigan basketball sitting at 1-1 on the season. Tough loss on Sunday, 72-70 against Wake Forest in what they say is a neutral site game, but it was, a semi-away game for them playing in enemy territory. We'll discuss that. Fellas, how are we doing today?
Doing all right, all things considered, guys. I saw a bowl projection for the whatever bowl games at Ford Field now. What's it called? Was it one of the oil change places, or is it a like a tattoo parlor? What is it? Clay? Any idea?
Yeah, I think it's Quick Lane, right?
Is it still Quick Lane?
No, it is a name change. I just saw it on our board.
Probably some weed shop right up here out of Taylor. Oh, we got to tell you a Taylor story, by the way, Anthony, in a minute. Clay and I do.
Well, tell it now because I need to Google what this bowl game is.
All right, so we're listening to 97.1 on the way down to the game, and they were talking about the worst cities and
most boring cities.
Most boring cities
Top
in
10.
Michigan. Top 10, and Taylor, Michigan was on that list. I didn't think that was fair. They have a Hooters, they have tattoo parlors, right? They have things like that. So, but
Right.
we immediately thought of Anthony. I'm like, these people don't know what they're talking about.
No, that's why I left. I don't live there anymore. So
exactly.
I got word with
No, he got married, and so he couldn't have that much fun anymore. So he had to leave. That's
right.
what it is. Yeah.
Well, no, I
Chris
wasn't having
called in.
enough fun.
Yeah, Chris called in and really let Doug have it. So
Damn right I did. I said
we
you
got
don't
your
know.
back.
Said you don't know Taylor the way we know Taylor. Damn it.
Right.
So,
Taylor talking.
I want a quick shout out to Doug Karsh today. He did 4 hours of radio without his co-host and without his regular producer today, and which means it's caller-driven radio, which means Doug probably needed a nap after his shift today. So shout out to Doug Karsh.
At that age, absolutely. So all right, let's continue.
It is the Game Above Sports Bowl.
How is that?
I have no idea.
What the hell even is that?
I don't know. Hopefully they don't ever wind up sponsoring us because we just kind of slandered them there. But
we just don't know what it is.
No.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Sponsor.
And hey, we're amenable to being sponsored if we figure out what Game Above is. But bowl projections there. At this point, Duke's Mayo Bowl still in play. Music City Bowl in play in Nashville, which could be fun. What's the other one? Pinstripe Bowl. Whatever. We'll get to all that stuff. Of course, there are 2 games remaining in the regular season, Northwestern, Ohio State. We will talk about that. We will discuss Michigan basketball at 1-1, and just a spoiler alert there. I'm not overly concerned with that. We'll talk. We also had a Dusty May presser today. We'll get into some of those statements that he made as well. But as we are,
I'm doing well, by the way. I'm doing okay.
Are you? Well, you pontificate. We just kind of skipped over you there
because he's not from Taylor.
Yeah, no one got to me.
There we go.
My only thought is,
boy, we're off the rails today, guys.
We are.
Well, no, I didn't get to say how I'm doing. I'm doing all right.
I'm glad you're doing great.
That's bad hosting on my part.
You know why? Because he won staff picks again. This guy is all over this shitty team this year. This guy, when it comes to knowing shitty football, nobody beats Clayton Safey.
Hey, wow. I'm not calling it that, but I will say
I am.
Bye weeks are way less fun when the team loses coming out of it. It's way more fun to win and go into it. So in that respect, it's not a great time for a bye for Michigan, but we are here and we got some basketball still here to talk about.
But how are you?
My emotions are irrelevant. It's all about, the team and how things are going there. So,
Okay. Before, just to pull ourselves back on the rails a little bit, we are brought to you every Monday by our friends over at homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order. I walked in from press conference today, and my lovely wife is Christmas trees are up and lights are up and all these things are up, which means it's time for me to start thinking about holiday shopping. It's time for me to start thinking about knocking stuff off the list. And the best way to do that for the Michigan fan in your life is to head on over to homefieldapparel.com. Get a little colder outside, the most comfortable crew necks you'll ever have, the most comfortable, the joggers, the hooded sweatshirts. I mean, they're all amazing. Some of the best, softest material you'll ever buy. Like I said, I feel like I've been saying it for 4 or 5 years at this point. I have an entire drawer, an entire section of my wardrobe dedicated to our friends over at Home Field Apparel. So yeah, whether it's the Michigan fan in your life, whether it's the directional school fan in your life, whether it's the rival fan in your life, because you know what, sometimes they need some love too. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com, and whether you're buying for the Michigan State fan in your life or the Central Michigan fan in your life, use that promo code Wolverine and put us in the credit column for who sent you over there. So use that promo code Wolverine, 15% off your first order. I should also say a little housekeeping here. Our national championship magazines over at the WolverineOnDemand.com. We still have plenty of those in stock as well. This is bad on me. Should be a little more organized today. Those are retailing for $20 for the hardcover copy, which that's a steal in my opinion. I'm a little biased though. They're $10 for the soft cover. Again, don't let the last 10 weeks of football distract you from the fact that what we got to watch and what we got to cover last year was pretty special. And these books, I'm seeing them everywhere still. I'm seeing them at Rally House. I'm seeing them at Barnes & Noble. And every time I do see our work out in the wild from that season, it does, it does add a layer of perspective. That was a lot of fun last year. And put it under the Christmas tree. Put it in a stocking for someone.
And you're going to want to cling to this memory in the off season when the snow's falling and we're not in Pasadena and we're not in Houston to bring you all the great coverage. When we're at the game, whatever bowl, you're going to want this. So buy it and get 2 or 3 for your family members. This is going to be something special. We will have Anthony Broom autograph them for you if you're really nice for an extra $20.
I'd be honored. They lowered the price accordingly to account for that. So, yeah, head on over to the WolverineOnDemand.com. We'll drop the description for that in the details below. But yeah, 144 ad-free glossy pages in the hardback edition, 148 full-color glossy pages in the regular one. These ship for free too, so get them today. I'll load up on them. You're going to want to hold on to this, and if you're real sad, maybe you sleep with it at night. Who's to say? That's the WolverineOnDemand.com. Okay, fellas, let's move into. We'll start with football today. Michigan is on its second bye week of the 2024 season, sitting at 5-5, coming off a 5-point loss to the number 8 Indiana Hoosiers on Saturday. And to me, maybe the most telling thing about where this team is at right now, maybe the most surprising thing about knowing what we do by Indiana fans, no field rush on Saturday. So that's a little sobering, isn't it?
2 things. As our Doug Skeen said, the field is about 20 feet, probably not that high, but the first row is about 10 feet there. So you would have had some casualties there. That would have been tough. He reminded me of that. Although I think, the dozens of people that were there in 2020 rushed the field, if I'm not mistaken, in the asterisk year. And they were pissed. They were upset that they didn't win by more. I was riding the elevator down again and walking through the crowd of people, and they're like, man, I really wanted to beat them by a lot more. And that kind of tells you exactly where we are here when Indiana doesn't see you as fit to rushing the field because they only beat you by 5. Now, granted, I'm going to give the Michigan defense some credit here because they played their ass off. And if it were me, I'd have a hard time when I'm watching that offense go on the field saying, man, I'm going to, really, really give it my all here. And I wouldn't really, but I give them credit just for being as invested as they are and for busting their ass like they are. And people have been on Wink Martindale, but that defense has come to play in the second halves of the last 2 games and really the game before that too. So given that this offense, hi Cat, this offense is as bad as it is, that I just don't know what to say. I give them credit, but overall, you know what? Another disappointment. I didn't think I'd be as upset because it's a top 10 opponent, but yet more pissed off knowing that they, should have won this football game.
That's something they talk about too, as the defense is playing with the blinders on, where it doesn't matter what the offense does. It doesn't matter what position they're put in. If it's a turnover and you got to go right back out there, sudden change situations, as Bo Schembechler would put it, that they answer the bell. And they've been put in a lot of tough spots this season. They haven't answered the bell every time. You can't do it every time. But in this game, they kept them in it. And even the first half, was okay, right? You start off with a stop. They scored on 2 straight drives. If the pressure got there a split second earlier on the second touchdown where Jair Hill got beat on the double move, it could have been a different story. So they were playing solid throughout, but then they just put it together and ramped up the intensity and had a ton of juice coming out of halftime. And you have to give them credit for that. And then just the offense couldn't do anything really. The 1 touchdown comes on 4th down. They finally put Kalel Mullings in at the goal line, but the offense wasn't going to put a drive together at the end to win the game, and just missed some huge opportunities. It wasted that defensive performance, but they were in it against a team ranked number 5 now in the AP, after coming close to making a 1-score game the week before against the number 1 team in the country. So there's progress here in how they're playing some of these teams. I expected it to be close, and it was a really good game, exciting game. Michigan just didn't have anything offensively that to actually win it.
And the one thing that we can keep saying, which, it is a blessing and kind of something that's a bit annoying, is this team, for all the people that talk about, oh, these guys are opting out, oh, Will Johnson's opting out, which again is not true. These guys play to the final whistle, and it's irritating that sometimes it takes that, oftentimes it's taken that rah-rah speech at halftime, the gut check sort of moment. You're down 17-3, to kind of make that push, make that comeback in the second half. But they do play hard for this coaching staff, which makes what some of the things that have gone on the sideline this year even more frustrating, because I'm never going to sit here and argue that they should have beat Texas or they should have beat Oregon. But, when you look at some of the self-inflicted wounds that they've made, they should. I think it's extremely easy to argue they should have at least 2 more wins. When you look at the Washington game, the Illinois game was right there. This game was right there for the taking. But that's not really the direction I want to go this week, because I feel like every week on here, we're talking about the same sort of mistakes. We're talking about the same sort of blunders. And at this point, they always say, your resume is what's on film. This is what they are. I want to take it a little bit of a different direction today, because the blessing of a second bye week is that it's another opportunity now to kind of sit back, reflect internally, self-scout, and all of these types of things. So I want to kind of put you guys, all of us, in the headspace of Sherrone Moore. Like, we know what the narratives are to this point. We know that it's inevitable that change is going to come, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I don't see how it can't. But you can't make those changes until the season's over, because there is only 2 games left. So really where I want to start today is, you're sitting back, you're on the bye week. I know they're going to hit the recruiting trail and things like that. But if you're in the big chair running this program this week, what is your list of priorities? How do you find a way to maximize, the 2 opportunities you have remaining to finish the season on, at this point, the highest possible note you can?
Can I be honest here, and brutally honest? I would go out and get opinions from some outsiders. about, I don't care if you have to pay somebody to dissect everything about the Ohio State football team, any weakness, anything, and start preparing for that football game. Maybe get some of the analysts that you've had on past staffs, with all due respect to the analysts on this staff, any due respect, and say, I'd call Jesse Minter. I would say, I'd call Jim Harbaugh. I would get anybody and anybody and everybody who has any time at all to spend time breaking down the Ohio State football team and where they might be susceptible when it comes to tendencies and stuff like that. Because the only chance of redemption at all that you have this year for this crappy season is to beat Ohio State. And that to me, I don't care if they overlook Northwestern. They're still going to probably win that game because Northwestern's worse than this Michigan team. They damn well better win that game. Otherwise, the entire narrative on the season shifts even in more in one direction. So to me, that's what I would be doing. I would be, everybody's talking about, oh, get the young guys ready for next year. You don't know if these young guys are even going to be here next year anymore, fellas. That's the reality of what college sports has become. I was watching that Michigan basketball game the other night and thinking, man, it's you're still invested with the jerseys, the names on the jersey and stuff like that. But it's so weird seeing a team of veterans suiting up that you've never seen play before, all playing together, seniors, and just it's bizarre. It's different, but that's what I would do. And say, hey, we've got to find a way to put ourselves in position. I don't care if we have to change everything up, if we have to go complete read option, but we have to do something, triple option or something like that to catch Ohio State off guard. Because to me, that is the one and only thing that is going to change the narrative on this season is if you beat Ohio State and leave a decent taste in everybody's mouth.
I agree. I mean, I think they're always preparing for that too. In the bye week's a great opportunity to do it 2 weeks before. At the same time, the Northwestern game is massive, and you can't leave that one to chance either. Because I think, you go 5-7, you miss a bowl game in year one. I don't think Sherrone Moore would be fired, but I think, there would clearly be something wrong, right? He'd have to make major changes. He might already have to do that.
There clearly is something wrong already, unfortunately. But continue.
And there would be there would be heightened, more questions about just everything, about what the future holds. And obviously, December either way is going to be a massive month for this program. Whether it's retooling the coaching staff, retooling the roster, they have to do that. Certainly through the transfer portal. Wink Martindale talked about how big of a necessity that is when he spoke with us last week. So. That's all going to be big regardless, but losing that Northwestern game, you'd really, the confidence is already low from a lot of the fan base, but I think you would lose a lot of them with that, unless you beat Ohio State the next week, of course. So that one is still always going to be big, and you still have that opportunity out there, and that's still something to play for. So that does help in a way in this era of college football, that a lot of these guys want another shot at Ohio State. Ohio State wants them, but Michigan's been, just as excited to get Ohio State over the last few years, and they've been able to get the job done. So that's still a big game. But specifically for what I would do if I were Sherrone Moore, to answer your question, Anthony's, I would dive into all things offensive line. The offensive line has been probably the biggest issue over the last few weeks, in my opinion. The defense has gotten better. They progressed despite some of the injuries in the secondary. Which is impressive in that sense. Obviously haven't been perfect or what everyone expected, but the offensive line with the amount of pressure they allowed, pressure on 61.8% of dropbacks for Davis Warren. He had a guy in his face at all times in that game on Saturday, threw a bunch of inaccurate passes. A lot of them were when he was on the run or he had a guy in his face and he was throwing off his back foot. It can't happen when you don't have a very good quarterback back there right now. And the second thing is the run game. It's been non-existent outside of some Alex Orji runs against Michigan State. They've regressed in that area. They've been banged up front. But even when Jadis came in at right guard to replace Giovanni El Hadi, who went down in the game with an injury, they still had 4 out of their 5 original starters in the game that started game one. Evan Link, Miles Hinton, Josh Preeb, and Jadis there. And then Crippen, a guy who was rotating in and on the verge of starting, ends up winning a job. So I know Jadis wasn't at his traditional spot, but those are 4 of the top 5 guys that you thought, were your best offensive linemen coming into the season. So something's got to get better there. They have to improve the offensive line because at least they need to have something to rely on, whether it's running the ball with a little bit of success or being able to protect the passer and find Colston Loveland and some of these guys on some of the passing downs. I mean, 206 yards of total offense is ridiculously low, even against a pretty solid team in Indiana. And a lot of it, in my opinion, fell on what the offensive line did. They were a complete no-show.
Spoiler alert, if it's not there now in week 10, it's not going to be there by the end of the year. And the fact that they aren't being able to pick up simple twists and games, Anthony, up front, and a lot of it's not even physical, even though they aren't as physical as they need to be. When you don't play with confidence, then you don't play with physicality either. These guys don't have any idea half the time how to pick up a simple end tackle twist. That's unacceptable. And unfortunately, this is a concern if we go back before the Jim Harbaugh era that a lot of us had about this offensive line, and not this one, obviously, a different offensive line, but wearing the same colors. That is a major concern, especially when your former offensive coordinator and line coach is now your head coach.
And for me, I think I don't like speculating on guys' job status and things that happens, but I'll just say this: like, if you're looking for a pound of flesh this week, and for someone like Kirk Campbell, for example, to be let go, like, it's not going to happen, because one, you kind of lose two spots on the staff if you were to do something like that, because you're down your primary play caller and you're down your quarterbacks coach. And people would say, well, what's the difference? It's been terrible anyways. But, you still got to have these guys, operationally getting guys ready to play and things like that. I think if I'm Sherrone Moore, I think the points that you've both made are extremely valid and should be on that list. I think for me, it's, leaning on what my fingerprints on this football team have been, which is being more involved in developing the offensive line. And if it has to be a kind of a lame duck demotion where Sherrone Moore takes over play calling, I think that's something he should do. We've already seen him call a couple games over Ohio State. He was, last year, the head coach and the play caller for a game against Ohio State. And I'm not saying that that's holy crap, all of a sudden this is the chemical mixture for them to figure out what ails them the final 2 weeks. But, it's all hands on deck now. And, if anything, I think that the reason that Sherrone Moore was the right hire, in that, he's a steward for the players, and, he wants to be there to support them, and he wants just kind of be a resource to them. That being kind of a lot, a hands-off sort of CEO type, and just letting everyone else, or doing what you need to do to just support everyone else. No, I think it's time for Sherrone Moore to put his stamp on this program and put his foot down in a lot of those areas. It's got to get a little more involved with the offensive line. We've seen that at times this year. I would probably take over play calling, especially for that Ohio State game. And listen, at this point, I mean, it's really not about anyone's feelings. It's really not about letting anyone down easy. Like, you're 5-5 right now. These guys are self-aware. They know that this is ultimately a business, and that, like we said earlier, what you put on film is what you will ultimately be judged on. So, Sherrone Moore is going to have to power his way through this with what comes after the season, with the portal, with getting this class signed, with the changes that he'll have to make. But I think for, if my ass is already kind of on the line, where, hey, if they go 6-6 or 5, God forbid, go 5-7, I'm already sort of on the hot seat. I'm scratching, clawing, putting my stamp down on this. And if it's going to go down the way that it looks like it's going down, I'm going out with doing it my way. And I think that a lot, there's been an identity crisis at times this year, because they have just tried to run back some of the things that have happened before. This is not that same program. It's time for Sherrone Moore to kind of step up and take over his program instead of trying to maintain what was.
What I would say about that, a couple things. I think Sherrone is probably already significantly involved in the offense. If he's not, then he's been doing a disservice to his team, because he obviously has been a coordinator here for a couple of years now. And so I don't think it's as simple as saying, okay, I'm taking over the play calling.
No.
Because it's I think they're probably calling plays that he would call. I hate to say that. It's like, well, if he would just do this, it does not make up for terrible blocking up front. Does not make up for quarterbacks that can't find receivers or hit them. It does not make up for terrible route running. And part of me feels bad for Kirk Campbell, and I get it. He's not doing a great job, and we all understand that because the offensive coordinator's job, regardless, is to put up points. And at the same time, how do you scheme around a terrible offensive line? 61.8% is insane, fellas. That's an insane number, and that's a fireable offense for somebody. I hate to say it. I'll come out and say it, though. That's absurd. At Michigan, this isn't freaking Northwestern 1979 or 1980. That's ridiculous. So they've got to be better, and the buck does start with Sherrone Moore. Stop with Sherrone Moore, though. But that cannot happen here. These guys have played a lot of football, and this flat out needs to be better. This product needs to be better, and you don't have the luxury anymore of sticking with things that aren't working in this day and age. Otherwise, your players are going to get poached. And you can talk about, well, you can fix it easily by going to the portal. Not if you can't coach them up either. So you cannot have weak links on your staff. Is my point. And I don't want to get into the finger pointing specifically. I know they aren't. All I know is that we know where the fingers are pointing, guys, when things are going poorly. It's on the guys making a ton of money to put a decent product on the field. This offense is abysmal. It is hard to watch. And it's really, frankly, a lot of people probably aren't watching it this year. A lot of people are out probably mowing their lawns on Saturdays instead of watching this football game or raking leaves because it's a lot more fun.
Yeah, I think it's a tough call with the play calling. I think if he, who's there every day and obviously understands what's going on, if he thought that was the right move, I think he probably would have done it by now. And he also has a lot on his plate as well. He said in an interview last week with Brad Galley that he spends over 50% of his time working on NIL and things like that. There's a lot on a head coach's plate in today's day and age. I know he has Sean McGee as his general manager, but there's still a lot there. They're obviously going after Bryce Underwood. They're trying to get ready for.
Can I respond to that real quick? Sorry, not
Yes.
to interrupt you, but like if you're not able to handle that being on your plate, you're not able to coach at this level in this program.
I mean, most head coaches don't call plays, but so I think a lot.
I'm talking more the administrative type of stuff.
Right. He's talking NIL and all that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm okay. Yeah. No, I think he can handle that. Can he handle that with play calling when that wasn't the original plan? Coming into the season, or does he think it'll help that much? Is he that disappointed with what they're calling, or is it more about how the players are executing and what their talent level is? Frankly, I think it might be a little bit more of that as well. There's not a whole lot of talent on this offense. There's one 4-star wide receiver. There's a great tight end. There are some lackluster offensive line play out there. We all know what the quarterback position is, and Khalil Mullings at running back seems to have regressed late in the season. So there's just the pieces you have to work with. I guess you can maximize that more, but adding another thing to his plate when already it seems like time management and challenges and things like that seem to be quite a lot. I don't know for me. And again, I'm not in the ability. I can't know for sure, but I just wonder how much of a solution that would be given everything else that needs to be fixed too.
Yeah, and I can't sit here and say that that's an option. I mean, we're kind of doing what they are right now in terms of throwing stuff at the wall because I wanted to try to make at least kind of find a silver lining in all of it, but I'll just ask the question. Is this too much? Is this too much for him? Because it looks like it right now.
Wow. I think you wrote a pretty damn good column on how this is not a place where you're supposed to be learning on the job, right? And what I would say is that I thought Sherrone Moore, surrounded by some elite coaches, was the right move, right? Here, as continuity goes. If you go, and it doesn't mean that you have to be really experienced. And if you go back to Gary Moeller, he had experience and he'd been an assistant coach forever and had been a head coach for a couple of years. He knew the ins and outs of running a program, the day-to-day of it, because he was so involved and was a coordinator, and he knew everything about Michigan and knew how to do it. The same with Lloyd Carr, right? When it was dropped on him. So I don't want to say it can't be done, But when you don't have any continuity whatsoever and you're the continuity hire, it gets hard, right? You are not drawing from a pool of Jim Harbaugh assistants. You're drawing from, and guys in his circle. You're drawing from guys in your circle who might not have that experience and football acumen. And with all due respect to this coaching staff, I think it's pretty obvious, right? You went from an elite coaching staff to a lot of guys who have not been in the game as long. You've got a 27-year-old, for example, offensive line coach, and Grant Newsom, who I still think is going to have a good career as a coach. But I think altogether, it's not working. And I think you need a reset after the season where you better look around if you're the athletic director and you're the head coach and say, maybe I need more help here I need to be put in a better situation to be successful. And so that's where we are right now, because the product on the field is not worthy of Michigan. And I don't think even Sherrone Moore would dispute that.
Well, I think on the assistant coaching, side of things, in terms of what he needs, he was given a pretty big assistant coach salary pool, and these guys are making a lot of money relative to what the assistant coaches made last season, relative to what other assistant coaches are making around the country. So I think he has those resources, and obviously things get complicated if you have to pay buyouts and things like that. But I think he's been given that. So I think he's got to use a full offseason, which he didn't have last year, to his advantage. And a lot of that comes quickly. The assistant coaching, hiring cycle is going to come in December. Well, you're also preparing for a bowl game. The transfer portal opens in December. Well, you're preparing for a bowl game. So they've got a lot here. They've got to be loading up the cannons in many different respects, understanding what they have to do right away as soon as the season ends. You hope it ends with a win over Ohio State and then, certainly a bowl game. But either way, they got to be ready to go. I think he's got to use a full offseason to his advantage. That includes December. And then, retool what went wrong, because Sherrone Moore didn't expect to be 5-5 at this point. He understands things need to be different and better. So I think that's kind of where you go if you're him. And that means a lot of tough decisions. And look, it's not about always what happens to a coach in a one season. John Beilein had a couple down years, of course, due to different reasons and injuries and things like that. Jim Harbaugh had some seasons that he would have liked to win some more games in, but it's what happens next. You retool the staff. John Beilein, when he brought in Billy Donlin and Sadie Washington and all those guys in 2017, and then it was Yaklich in 2018, like some of those moves defined the end of his career. Some of the moves Jim Harbaugh made in 2021 defined his career. So it's what comes next, and that's what I think a lot of people are anticipating to watch, even though there are still 2 games left.
Yeah, and again, I just want to say, for the record, on the record, I think Sherrone Moore right hire at the time. I think he still is, deserving of being able to work with a full deck and actually getting, having the full off season to make some of those tweaks, some of those changes. Because, man, think about it. I mean, think of all the fires that he kind of had to put out early on, and time will tell, what happens there. But just kind of wanted to appreciate the frank discussion and all the opinions around it, and we'll see what happens. Still 2 more football games to play. Note the Northwestern game will be a 3:30 kick on Fox Sports 1 on November 23rd. And remember, there is no game this weekend, second bye week. So any other final thoughts before we move over to hoops?
Yeah, I'm excited to watch some football this Saturday. I like bye weeks now, and I can't wait to see Newaygo High School on Saturday. I'm going to be going to that game, watch Ralph Munger's team. And what a job he's done with that program. That guy. It's funny. Rockford was like, "Oh, we need a change," a lot of people. And it's like now Rockford's out in the first round of the playoffs, and here's Ralph Munger taking Newaygo. So I'm going to go see some high school football. I'm going to hang out with my folks in Grand Rapids and watch some football. I think Nebraska plays next USC, if I'm not mistaken. So according to Megan, I'm going to bet heavily on the Trojans and have some fun out there.
That wraps up the high school football minute here on
Absolutely.
On Wolverine.
Congratulations, Ralph.
And the Grand Rapids Catholic Central still making a run.
All right.
All righty. Let's move on to basketball. slightly more positive things. Again, a 2-point loss. No one's going to kill you over that in the month of November. 72-70. It not at Wake Forest, but in Wake Forest, enemy territory, so to speak, at Greensboro. I think the early thoughts on this one, yeah, you let one slip away, figuratively and literally speaking, late in the game with some of the court conditions there, which is absolutely ridiculous. We talked to Dusty May on Monday, said, hey, guess what? Like, we're going to keep scheduling this way. And if you respond to it in the correct way, the NCAA tournament will reward you for playing games like this early on. And I think that this was a good early step, good early test for this team against a group that I think preseason was picked third in the ACC. They're going to be one of those teams that competes for an NCAA tournament spot. And, to me, I think when you look at the early stages of the Dusty May era, not that there hasn't been adversity in practice, in camp. They've had injury stuff and things like that. The exhibitions weren't perfect. There are things they would love to, they love to clean up from the opener. But I think seeing how they respond to this game on Sunday is fascinating to me. And I'm not worried about them. I have some question marks, not necessarily concerns, especially as it pertains to rebounding and maybe the two big lineup to a certain extent. But overall, a tough game. One of those quad one or tier A type of loss or games that kind of slips away from it. But no, as long as they respond, I think this has a chance to be a good test or a good lesson for them.
Win Friday and they'll be okay. They'll be just fine. Even if they don't win Friday, they could still be fine. But yeah, it was a 50-50 game, guys. Going in, it was it's funny because some of the guys, I didn't know Omaha Billieu played for Wake Forest. That's what I'm talking about in this day and age. I had no clue. I remember covering recruiting when he was considering Michigan and where he ended up and where he's been since then. You're going to have guys playing. Frankie freaking Collins is coming back here on Friday, guys, with TCU, on what, his 8th school or something like that. So
we were talking about that earlier.
It's nuts. And it's like, okay, but whatever. But to me, it was a missed opportunity, yes. But in the grand scheme, it means nothing as long as you take care of business the rest of the way, which I expect them to. I expect them to improve, and I think they're going to be just fine.
It was interesting. A couple of weeks ago, Dusty made a comment that kind of piqued my interest at one of his press conferences where he said that the goal is to avoid some of those close games because they're about 50-50, right? Of course, if you're Michigan basketball the last couple of years, they've been about you win 15% of those, but generally speaking, 50-50, the games within 6 points, comes down to a possession or a free throw or a rebound or something like that. And, they were up 13 in the first half. Of course, it's a long game, so you're not going to necessarily always going to be able to sustain that. But when it got down to it, there were just a few things that they didn't do well enough, a little bit of clunkiness. It's funny. I actually thought they were getting better shots maybe in the second half. And Dusty kind of said this too today than they did in the first, but a lot of the shots went in the first half. And he said a couple weeks ago in that comment I mentioned that it's a fluky game. So you leave it to chance, I guess, by not making some of those in the second half. They go 2 of 16 from 3 in the second half, which was tough. They were in the second half, they were 0 of 4 on unguarded catch and shoot jump shots, according to Synergy. That's tough as well. That could have swung the game. Of course, a 2-point game in the other direction. And here are some of the things that went wrong for Michigan in the last 3 minutes. Shot clock violation, missed layup in transition by Trey Donaldson. You allowed 2 offensive rebounds on that long Wake Forest possession. Danny Wolf slips, called for a travel. Roddy Gale slips in the same exact spot that was still wet from the Danny Wolf slip. Loses the ball, even worse. Live ball turnover, dunk for Spillers on the other end. All that happened, and you still only lost by 2 because Wake made their own mistakes. But Michigan made too many down the stretch. So a lot to get better at from the sense of, hey, don't make it a close game. And then when it is a close game, execute a little bit better. But like you said, Anthony, I completely agree. It's a lesson for them, and I think they'll be fine. And obviously Friday becomes a little bit bigger against TCU, but still a lot of time left here.
One thing I'd like to add is that when you play with tempo like that, a 13-point lead can get away from you in a hurry, as we saw twice, right? It's like when you're going up and down and it's a possession game and, man, you're jacking and you're missing, then you can allow a team to get back into the game quickly as well. So, and we saw that twice. I still like the style of play, but if you're going to do it, you better get some more defensive rebounds too, and not allow teams to have 3 possessions in one time down the court. That just can't happen.
Yeah, it's a coin flip game. Again, they probably, if one guy doesn't slip, maybe you win that game by 2, and it doesn't change that you shot the way you did in the second half. It doesn't change the way that you had some of the issues on the boards that you did at times, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens. Next couple games coming up here. You got this game against TCU on Friday, winnable game, home game. I won't say a must win, but one that'd be great to have. You have Miami of Ohio after that on the 18th, Tarleton State on Thursday the 21st. Then have a couple days off, and you'll head down to Fort Myers, which I will be down there, or for the tip-off or the tournament event that they do there. Michigan will play Virginia Tech on Monday the 25th, and shame on me, I forget who the other 2 teams are in that tournament. I feel like, Clayton, you've had to remind me a few times.
Virginia Tech, South Carolina, I think is Xavier the other one. Yeah,
that's it. Yep. So they'll play 2 games in 3 days down there just before Thanksgiving. We'll have coverage of that on site, which will be a lot of fun. And then December 3rd, you're already in that stretch where you've got 2 Big Ten opponents where you play Wisconsin on the road and Iowa at home. So, it's a couple bye games in there, but a lot of opportunities here to rack up some wins. And hey, I think the biggest thing for them, 500 in Big Ten play, as long as you take care of your business in the non-conference, is going to get you into the NCAA tournament. So,
yeah,
I think
they can be better than that too. I really do.
Oh, I do as well. So, anywho, any other final thoughts on hoops?
Nope, just still excited for the season, and I thought it was well played for a good portion of that game. And again, this is early in the year. Good teams and good coaches will improve throughout the year, and to be that close to a really good basketball team, even though you didn't win, and I know there are no moral victories, it to me is encouraging. I like how hard they play. I don't think that's ever going to be an issue with the Dusty May team.
Yeah, I think one of the things they need to clean up, according to Dusty, is he said they spent so much time on building this offense and working on the play after the play. And he said he felt like a lot of the time the ball was getting stuck on one side, then they'd kind of take a shot instead of, using the entire offense, a read and react offense under pressure in kind of, that environment. He said, okay, we thought we would execute a little bit better. Now we have had this test in that, with a team with athletes like Wake Forest has playing them the way they did. So now they have that on film to learn from. The other weird thing is Michigan opened as like a 3-point favorite against Wake Forest. They closed as a 1.5 point underdog. Vegas always knows they lose by 2. Did someone from one of these, whoever makes the odds, go there and see, man, this floor is a little slick in this one spot. Maybe they're going to lose by a couple.
Or they had a guy there in the front row with a little square paddle or something like that, or underneath.
Yeah. Well, so, it's so weird that you talk about flukiness in basketball. Mm-hmm. We had heard this today, just talking to some people that were at the game yesterday, so on one side of the floor, they had these kids working, like ball boy type of kids, and they were super excited coming out, wiping down the floor every time someone would fall, every time out. And then on the other end, the side that it happened on, they had just a guy that worked there with like one of those mop things, and he was a little less enthusiastic and may not even have come out between the Danny Wolf slip and the Roddy Gale one. So just the weirdness of losing a 1-possession game, it just kind of is what it is. Sometimes it's going to come down to stuff like that. And Dusty said it was just bad fortune, but just kind of a weird ending there.
It sounds like ageism to me.
Reminds me of was it last year or the year before where the guy, and again, we don't want to eat our own here by any stretch of the imagination, but there was a guy at Michigan who started coming out sweeping the floor during a fast break.
Yeah.
And he's like He's like the old guy with the mop in NBA Jam way back in the day when you would break a backboard. This is way before your time, guys.
No, I played NBA Jam. Still
okay. 98 years old and the backboard shatters, and you got this old guy with a broom like that. So that's what that reminds me of.
That was a great moment, Anthony. The screenshot of that with the guy with the mop out there.
Oh, listen, I saw a lot of baffling things at the tail end of the Juwan Howard era. That might be the craziest thing. So. All right, let's move into questions. We'll take a few here before we close out for this week. We're going to start with one a bit of an existential question here from Open Road 2950 on the Fort. He says, do you think college football is a dying product with its current trajectory? How would you specifically change it? And the first thing I'll say is, I hope not, because that's a money-making industry for us. So I hope it's not a dying product. I don't think it is. I think viewership for a lot of these games is as high as it's ever been. So no, it's not dying, but it is different.
It is different, and it's the young guys, the young kids with their phones and stuff like that. It's really the students, right? They are all leaving at halftime. It's not just Michigan, right? They have other things to do, and to them, I don't think it's as popular as like when we were younger. And there was no way I would ever miss a Michigan football game when I was in school, right? That's the first place. I couldn't wait to get there early. They were throwing marshmallows with pennies and quarters in them, and I didn't care. Hit me in the head. I don't give a damn. It was, that's the thing. It was an event, and now there's just so much more out there, and I think a lot of people are turned off by it now. I know I am. The way that it's headed, and it's more of a professional sport, but it's part of my soul, college football, and what I grew up with, and I think there is so much money at stake, and I think the numbers speak for themselves in terms of viewership, in terms of the money being thrown around. That no, I don't believe that. It's going to be to the point where you price out a lot of people out of stadiums, and you're going to have more corporate sponsors buying tickets and empty seats. But there will always be college football until maybe someday it gets so violent and so many people are, against it. Maybe in 10 or 15, 20, 30, 50, 100 years that, it's just too dangerous to play anymore. But to me, no, is the answer there.
I think what college football used to be is dying, and it's devolving into something else. And we're already seeing that just the differences in what the sport is over the last 3 years compared to what it was for the many years before that. Of course, there's always been evolution in it. But this is accelerated and way different. How would I change it? I would love to go back to how things were. Of course, that's not going to happen. But regional rivalries, conferences that make sense geographically, all these sorts of things that were stupid as hell just to make money. And now here we are in this, of course, there are some fun matchups that we get to watch on Saturdays, but, it was fun the other way too. And you're leaving people out now. I think in 10 years, I don't want to name any schools, but schools are going to start getting kicked out of the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're going to add more, and they're going to be even more super conferences, and they may break off from the NCAA. So I think it's, I'm not in charge of fixing it. So what I want doesn't matter, but I think it's going down a bad path.
That's our Clayton Safey taking a veiled shot at our producer saying, get Nebraska back to the Big 12.
It would not have been Nebraska. It would not have been. I was going to say like Northwestern or Purdue. But.
Oh, well, all right. Well, I'm saying Nebraska. Get them out of here. No, I'm just kidding. But I miss Nebraska and Oklahoma, and I miss, USC and the Pac. I miss having a Pac-12 and a Pac-10.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. I hate it. But get off my lawn, and we'll continue, and we'll go on.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is like, I try to. There's a lot of validity to the idea that Michigan won the national title and really like the last truly kind of college football as we know it type of season. Even then, there were a ton of changes before that, but there are probably 5-6 teams that could win the whole shebang this year. And in college sports before, there's been maybe 3. The 4-team playoff, everyone would always complain that the 5th team got screwed. Now it's just, parity is here, and it's a little bit different. It's a lot to get used to, but here we are. So I would just say, if you're going to make it semi-pro football, let's just make it what it is and stop calling the the 18-team conference, the Big Ten, and, the 2-team conference, the Pac-12. Like, it's just kind of ridiculous. So move on to this one from Jim Rome Stinks, who says, give me your 3 wishes for Michigan football next season, and none of them can be wins.
Okay. None of them can be wins. I want to see an extremely well-coached football team on both sides of the ball in every facet. That's number 1. Is that okay?
That helps winning. Yeah.
That would help winning. Number 2, I want to see adequate quarterback play. I want to see very good quarterback play, the kind of quarterback play that anybody who has any hopes of winning a national championship employs, right? And we've seen other schools go out and get great quarterbacks. The fact that Michigan's stuck with this quarterback room is ridiculous. With all due respect to the kids who are here, and I'm really not ripping on these guys. These guys are trying their best, but this is not what Michigan should be. That would be two. My third one, it can't be a win. I hope that Ohio State and Michigan State lose every game on the schedule next year.
And they are on Michigan's schedule, so it's a win.
There you
You
go.
said it
Well,
can't
I
be
didn't
wins,
say
but they didn't say you can't root for other teams
Right.
to lose.
exactly. So there you
True.
go.
Yeah, I guess I'll take that one too. And elite quarterback play. I mean, these are wishes, right? Elite
Mhm.
quarterback play. I guess here are my three: elite quarterback play, elite offensive line, elite defense.
There you go.
I'll
That-
allow it.
which kind of falls into the really, really well coached football team on both sides of the ball. But you have to have the talent too. So go to the portal,
Right.
get the guys you need, and stack it up. Damn it, this is Michigan, for God's sake.
I will change up the verbiage a little bit and just say mistake erasing quarterback play. Things that make up for the deficits you might have in other areas. I think when I think of, you boil down what good Michigan teams have been, at least in the last few years. Strong up the middle, strong at quarterback, strong at center and both guard spots. And you've got a running back that when push comes to shove, you can hand them the football 25 times per game. So I guess I'll just throw that one in there. Mistake erasing quarterback play, strong up the middle on the offensive line, and a bell cow at running back. Because they don't have either of any of those things this year.
I think Khalil could be behind a better line, to be honest with you. But
Yeah,
now he's not. Now he's not even playing. So whatever.
Anthony, you're leaving the defense to chance, man.
Yeah, well, mistake erasing quarterback play will win you a few shootouts, maybe. So
They're going to be Miami next year.
Elite.
you know what? That'd be a hell of a lot more fun than whatever it is we've been watching.
If you're 8-1 or whatever they are at this point, yeah, I'd take it.
So if I could, I'll go again. Elite play at every single position, all Americans at every position.
That's one wish.
Every opponent on the schedule loses every game on the schedule.
Not possible.
And then whatever happens next, it is possible because they could all have seasons vacated and stuff, too.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
All right, let's move on.
Yep.
This is from Bloomer, who says, how concerned are you with the basketball team's performance with defensive rebounding, and can we fix it before Big Ten play?
Of course you can fix it. That's an effort thing, and that's something that they'll get better at. I have no question about that. It's been disappointing early. But those were also issues remember with early John Beilein teams, right? And they would outscore everybody, and it was a possession game. And then he found out that at 2, he said, "Hey, we got to be better at it." And they got better at it. They'll get better at it. They've got too much length, in my opinion, and too much pride for that to be an issue all season.
Yeah, one of the keys Dusty keeps talking about is we want to take more shots than our opponent. And the Cleveland State game, they killed them, but they still didn't take more shots. They turned the ball over. They gave up some offensive rebounds. Cleveland State crashes the board really hard, so it doesn't really matter. But then the next game, you turned it over 16 times. You gave up 11 offensive rebounds, 8 second chance points. That was the difference in the game, especially 1 or 2 here or there. So, yeah, I think they can fix it. I think it'll go a long way as well because this team has a lot of other parts. Are you going to become just immediately elite, as a defensive rebounding team? No, it takes athleticism and things like that, and you're going against other good teams. But they can be much better than they've been, and I expect that they will with, more emphasis on it.
I have nothing to add there. Let's go to one from Jay Schultz, who says, which C-tier bowl game would you like Michigan to go to? Music City in Nashville, whatever one the Detroit one is called now, which that's the game above Sports Bowl, as we discovered today. The Pinstripe Bowl, the Mayo Bowl. Are there any I'm forgetting? I've seen the Rate Bowl in Phoenix, or thrown in there. I think you guys went there a few years ago during the Fiesta Bowl stuff. But, I mean, a couple of us are going to travel regardless. So, I mean, where do you want to go? Would you rather just be home for the holidays and take a day out of your schedule? Or do you want to go to Charlotte and watch Sherrone Moore get a tub of mayo dumped on him?
What day is the game above Sports Bowl?
Let me check on that. December 26th, day after Christmas.
Day after Christmas. Then Boy, there's just no winner here, guys. So you know what? Might as well go to Nashville, right? Isn't it Music City in Nashville? And
Yep.
we'll go out. Our on three overlords are down there. They can take us out to dinner. We can have a good time. Say hi to Shannon, Terry, Ryan, Tyson, the guys, and why not? Nashville's a great town, so it'll be a lot of fun.
I've never been to Nashville. I'd love to go. That's the obvious
Need to
answer
go.
to me. And then
Yeah.
I have some friends in Charlotte, so that'd be number 2. I
Uh,
don't want to go to Detroit.
These are for selfish reasons, by the way. We don't, it doesn't matter who Michigan plays or where. Let's be frank.
and
Right.
before people in the comments inevitably say, doesn't matter, the guys are going to opt out anyway. It's like, well, there's still a game that we'll have to watch and cover, and that you'll be watching regardless because you're sickos just like we are. Let's take one more from Psychodoc AJ, who says, when was the last time Michigan had an elite wide receiver room that met its full potential? Besides players, what can be done to fix the passing game?
2004, probably. Back when you had Jason Avant, Braylon Edwards, Steve Breston was an elite room. I think they were all three there that year, 2003, maybe 2004. Yeah. That's when, and that's what it should look like, honestly. But to do that, you're going to have to get a quarterback and start throwing the ball a little bit more too, which I think inevitably is something Sherrone Moore would like to do, and Kirk Campbell. But you just don't have the pieces this year. This is tough to watch.
The last time it was really like maybe fully complete. I don't know if they met their full potential because then we saw in the bowl game against Florida, they opened it up a little bit more and things look pretty good. But 2007, you had a lot of talent there. Like Manningham, Adrian Arrington, each had over 65 catches. Manningham went well over 1,000 yards. And then Greg Matthews was like the quintessential third receiver that you don't want him to have to become a first receiver. And that team, he was a third. But yeah, that in terms of, but it was definitely the end of the Lloyd Carr era. And then they maximized their potential last year, but it wasn't elite. And they didn't need it to be elite, of course. Everything worked out perfectly, but that's probably my answer.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us. There's a beam of light. It's like a ray of sunlight, which
I'm
it's
not
not
walking
often you
towards
can
it.
say that in Chris Ballas's box, a ray of sunlight.
I'm not walking towards it right now, guys. It's not my time yet. I do have to lose a pound of fat off my face. Of the 8 pounds I've gained this fall, and it's inevitable during football season, one of them went directly to my face. So, but I am not ready to walk towards the light. See, go away.
Well, as they say, be wary of the light at the end of the tunnel because it might be a freight train. So, just be careful there, CB. That's going to do it for us. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, use that promo code UM1 to get 2 months of access to our website for $1. You're going to have National Signing Day coming up. You're going to have, I assume, some sort of change to roster and coaching staff coming up. You're going to want to get in on this now because it's going to pay for itself the day you sign up. But that deal just gets better and better with each passing day with what the next 2 months or so will cover. So take advantage of that. For Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you again on Thursday.